Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar about our local area network access protection solution called LAP One. My name is Jan Poulsen, and I work in pre-sales here in Solid Systems in Europe. We are a global organization, a Japanese company with headquarters in Tokyo and offices around the world. I'm part of the European organization, which is headquartered out of Amsterdam, and I'm physically located in our system development center in Copenhagen, or just outside of Copenhagen in Denmark. Today I'll be talking about our product NetAttest LAP One, and after the presentation of the product we'll have a Q&A session, so please enter your questions while I'm doing the presenting, and we will try and answer as many of those questions at the end of the session. Any questions that we can't answer at this time will be sent out in a follow-up email, also with links to this presentation and to the webinar. So, what is LAP One? Well, today, in the network environment that we work in, and with the devices that are available to us, there are so many things that can connect up to our network, and it can be quite a task to keep track of what devices actually have access on our network. There are, of course, solutions out there to handle this, but many of these are very complex. They are very costly and resource intensive, both to install but also to maintain and monitor. And this on top of all these different devices that are available to people. Most people have at least one smartphone, maybe more, tablets, laptops, netbooks, Chromebooks, whatever you have. And all of these need network attachments in order to work. There can also be situations where a department in the company maybe decide that they would like to have a local printer, and instead of asking IT, they simply buy one and attach to the network, not completely understanding the security implications of doing that. Or it could be something like a TV, a smart TV in the office, and somebody thinks it's a good idea to connect that up to the network. Now, when employees do this, of course, it is not with ill intent or malicious intent towards the company or the network. It is basically just because people want to do their work as best they can. But we as network administrators then need to keep track of all of this and make sure that we are not allowing devices onto the network that we don't know about and that we don't have control of. So this is what exactly LAP One was designed to do. Instead of having a very complex network access control solution where you have to configure every single network device, your switches, your routers, Wi-Fi access points, and so on, to talk to this NAC solution and getting everything set up perfectly and working, monitoring it, and so on. The LAP One is a standalone box that you insert into your network. It initially starts in a learning mode where it learns about what's on your network, and then it will switch over to a jamming mode at a certain point in time. And from then on, unknown or unregistered devices will simply not be allowed to work or to get connected to your network. The way this works is something called ARP jamming, and that may sound a little technical, but basically it is how network adapters talk to each other on the network. So they use a protocol called ARP in order to figure out the address of the server or the other device that you want to talk to. What the LAP One is capable of doing is listening to this traffic and changing the contents of the ARP reply. So instead of getting the actual address of the server you're trying to connect to, you'll get the address of the ARP one. So all the traffic from the unwanted device or unknown device on the network will go to the lab 1. And should a packet somehow get through the system, then the response from whoever receives that packet will also go to the lab 1. So in essence, the device is completely isolated from everything else on the network. The lab 1 is a standalone solution. It is a single box with a management interface built into it. It can handle up to 512 devices, and that can be on 1 or 2 network segments. When you first turn on the lab 1, there's a very simple configuration of it. You basically tell it the standards, things about getting on the network, an IP address, your DNS servers, your default gateways, and so on. And once that is set up, you can then configure what kind of jamming mode you want, and normally you'll start out by automatically having it register everything that's on your network at this time. And then you set a date for how long you want this registration period to go on. And then once you reach this date, it will switch into jamming mode instead. You can also have it only inform and not actually jam, so that you can see devices that are getting onto the network, and they will then be permitted to work on the network, but you will be informed that there's a new device on the network. So there may be instances where this makes sense. In all cases, if a device that is not known to the lab 1 is connected, the administrator will receive an email that tells him about the device that's trying to connect up. When this happens, there's a number of things that you can choose to do, depending on how you want to enable the user to do something with this device. So you can decide not to notify the user at all. So the user experience will be that their device simply does not work on the network. You can also decide to display a message telling the user that they do not have network access with that device, and that they need to contact an administrator in order to get connected. Or you can allow the user to have a request form if they start up a browser and try to connect to something. And in that request form, they can enter in information about themselves and why they think this device should be added to the network. If the user fills out the form and sends it off, again, the administrator will receive an email with this information in it. And this time, there's also a link included, so the administrator can quickly click on that link, go straight to the administration interface of the lab 1. And of course, you still have to sign in, so you still have to authenticate yourself to the lab 1. And then the administrator can permit the device to have access to the network. As soon as the administrator makes that permission, the device will then stop being jammed on the ARP packets, and it will be able to work normally inside the network. You can also go into the administration interface and find each of the devices that have been blocked on the system and allow them from this administration interface. So if there's multiple devices that you need to permit, they will all be listed in the interface, so you can easily see what is being jammed on the network. The lab 1 has a couple of different modes it can run in. If it runs in very basic mode, it only looks at the MAC address of the device, but you can also set it into advanced mode where it will look at IP address, host name, and even trying to determine what kind of operating system is running on the device it's trying to get access. And you also have the ability to put in your own remarks that help you identify what this device is and what it's for on your network. There's also a status where you can quickly see all your devices on the network, which ones are allowed and which ones are denied. And here will also be the additional information about host names, IP addresses, and operating system. And you can see when this device was first seen on the Lab 1. So this is a quick overview of all the devices. In the previous screen, it's a little hard to see up above here, is actually the list of all the devices that are permitted. So you can also quickly go into that list, find any device you no longer want to have network access, and delete that out of the list again. So the Lab 1 may not be for everyone. There may be a very good reason why you implement a network access control solution, especially in very big networks and so on. But oftentimes, even if you do have a NAC implementation in your company, you may have branch offices, satellite offices, or perhaps organizations, small offices or things you work with where you have some responsibility for a network. And it may be easier to implement a Lab 1 than to try and extend the network access control to these separate offices. A very good example of this is that we currently have a POC going with a hospital in London. And this hospital actually services 80 different locations around the London area. And some of these locations are just small doctor's offices, or they can be emergency wards, or they may be full hospitals. And for them, it makes very much sense to have a Lab 1 on each of these networks to control what gets access to this, instead of trying to manage a very large and complex NAC solution. If the Lab 1 is too small in size because of the limitation of the 512 MAC addresses, there's also a big brother to this just called LAP, and there's a management console that goes with the LAP devices as well. And so these LAP devices can, in a full solution, can handle up to about 4 million devices, and can also be configured to handle VLANs and so on. So it's a little more of a complex product. It's not still not quite a NAC product, but it allows you, for instance, if you have mobile devices that move from network to network, then they only need to be registered with the management console, and the Lab 1s protecting each of the the labs protecting each of the segments will then know from the management that the device is allowed to get onto the network. Together with the Lab 1, with the Lab 1, we are right now running a try and buy campaign that you can sign up for, and this will ship you a Lab 1, which you can then test for 14 days. And if you like it, we certainly hope you'll buy it, and otherwise you just return it back to us again. The information about this is available on our webpage, where you can sign up for it, and it will also be included in the material that we'll send out after this presentation. So let's check if we have any questions coming in. The list looks very empty right now. So please, if you have any questions, please post those right now, and I'll try and answer as many as I can. If you are looking at more control over, for instance, devices and so on, with other than just simply whether or not they should have network access, in the series of NetAttest products, we also have a product called NetAttest EPS, which allows you to issue certificates to your devices in a very easy way. And it also includes both a radius server and LDAP services, so you can manage users. So register devices and authenticate users on the system. And of course, that integrates with anything that understands the radius protocol. We have a question coming in. What happens if the power fails? So the LAP One is not a let's say a 100% guaranteed solution that you will be able to keep everything off the network. If the power fails for the LAP One, then of course the jamming function ceases to work. However, it's very easy to back up the or have a backup of the configuration of your LAP Ones. Install a new LAP One and restore the configuration, and it will be back up and running in minutes again. So it may be a good idea to have 1 or 2 extra on stock just in case something might happen to it. So a very good question. Any other questions? Please post them. Of course, we also have many other solutions that give you security on network and also data security. So please check our websites and see what we're all about. So if there's no more questions, I am going to say thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this webinar. As I mentioned before, we will post this on the website. We will also send out follow-up emails where you can get both the access to the webinar and the presentation. So thank you very much for joining in, and please sign up for our future webinars as they become available. We intend to make this on a regular basis. So thank you very much, everyone, and talk to you soon.